everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a little bit more of a fun video. I have seen Dr. Mike do something really similar, but I haven't seen any other models that I follow do this video. So today I'm going to be reacting to model memes. Massive shout out to the Instagram account Shit Model Management. Unless you do this job, you don't know what sometimes goes on, and some of these things are really funny and so relatable for me. So I thought that I'd go through, explain why they're funny, and give you a little bit of insight into the industry. I know that this account is run by a legitimate model, you know, who's done all sorts of things. I don't know who she is, but the account is incredibly accurate, really relatable if you are in this industry. I hope that you enjoy this video. I will leave a link down below to that Instagram account if you want to go and follow it, and maybe we can do a part 2 if you guys really enjoy this. So I have picked a whole bunch on my phone and I will pop them up here for you so you guys can see what I'm looking at. If you guys are new here, my name is Hannah. I also have a reptile channel. I will leave a link up here for you. I work as a full-time plus size model. I haven't always been plus size. I signed with a women's agency at 12. I went full-time at 18, and I have been working in London throughout Europe ever since there, so I currently have been modelling for about 14 years. Me over here struggling to squeeze the clothes over my head without getting makeup on them. Right, so this has happened to me so many times, and if you get makeup on the clothes it can be really annoying because someone's going to have to like try and clean it or Photoshop it out. When you're shooting, whether it's e-com or it's a campaign or whatever it is, normally what happens is you will go and get your hair and makeup done first. But of course, if you then have, say, 30 shots to do, let me give you a really good example. If I was shooting ASOS, you guys have seen me, I used to do their maternity, weirdly. I would go and maybe there'd be anything from about 25 outfits to like 32, and you would have to do a little video section, and you would have to do like a front shot, a back shot, like a little detail if there was any kind of like pocket or a pattern or something, and then that would kind of be your full array of shots. What happens is you have your hair and makeup done first, and so if there is anything with like a really tight neck on it, or like the buttons don't come undone properly, or anything that has to go over your head, you have to try really hard, A, not to get makeup on the clothes. Like if anything is white or cream and it has a tight neck, like that is a girl's worst nightmare, but also like not to mess up your hair as well. So often if you've got anything that kind of has to go over your head, the stylist or makeup artist or someone else that's on set will kind of give you a hand, like you hold the back of it and they will kind of pull down the front to make more room for your head to go through. There you go. So photographer, do something spontaneous, show us who you are. Me, panics. So this is something that happens quite often. You'll be doing your shots and you'll be kind of doing your poses, like my boyfriend always takes the piss out of me because one of my typical like Hannah's modelling shots is like a, you know, like laughing, looking down, because you get to see the makeup nice, it's a good angle for face. Anyway, never mind, technicalities. So he always takes the piss. So generally speaking, like, you know what you're doing, you move around a bit, you know whether they want kind of serious, like pissed off model face, or like a bit more friendly, approachable, kind of, you know, some walking shots and playing with your hair, like being a little bit more kind of animated and friendlier looking. But then once you've kind of like done your kind of basic, like really definitely suits the mood of the brand and stuff shots, and they're happy that they've got something that they will absolutely be able to use for the images, what they were, my worst nightmare is a photographer suddenly going, okay, now that we've covered that off, like let's do something crazy, just do what you want, like anything, like be wild, pull some funny faces, like make it really cute, and you do just think, fuck, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And you often do end up doing something really weird. And the thing is, like, if you're a little bit, it maybe doesn't seem like it because I put videos on the internet and I also model for a living, but until I get to know people and stuff, I can be quite shy, and like drama or any kind of performance type classes at school were the worst experiences of my life. I hated drama, I hated dance, I hated having to do anything with performances or like public speaking when I was at school. So having a room full of like 10 people, including the client, often watching you and them just going, do what you want, and you thinking, okay, I literally could do anything, I've got free reign here, but it needs to also look like I can do my job. And often you do just like panic. Like I've done some really weird things and it just hasn't worked, and I've done some really weird things and it's looked great, and I've thought, how the hell have I got away with that? When one show ends at 3 and the next has a call time of 3 and you get yelled at for being late. So this happens very often. This is the kind of job where like your finish time isn't necessarily your finish time. So I appreciate that if you have an office job or anything and you have a lot of work on or something, you might do some overtime or extend your hours a little bit, or you might have to stay late, etc, etc. But this is something that can occur and does frequently occur in my job as well. When you're doing something like a little bit more creative, or like maybe you're relying on like they have to shoot certain clothes that day but the courier hasn't delivered them, like all sorts of like weird and wonderful things can go wrong when you're on set. And sometimes you run over, but a lot of the time you're trying to cram in as like many like casting calls or you know, shows and stuff, especially like fashion week. I feel like I'm quite lucky in that I haven't experienced like a London, Paris, New York fashion week. I did Oman fashion week a few years ago, and it was that year we had really awful snow, and I landed back to the UK in January, and I remember having like such awful blisters that I couldn't wear proper shoes and it was snowing outside. That was a weird experience. But often the shows don't always run to time, the castings don't always run to time. You could get there and there's a big queue outside, for example. This doesn't just happen with shows, it happens with other things as well, and that is the worst nightmare. Like many a time I've been sent to casting, you know, you have a look at what your day has, where all your castings are that day, or like where your shows are or whatever, wherever you have to get to. You plan your routes and you hope that you'll make everything on time. But realistically, trying to get across the city, having casted on time for the first one, plus your travel time and get there for when you're supposed to, half the time it just doesn't happen. Like a lot of people realise that that's just something that models have to deal with, and it's not necessarily our fault. Like things just get crammed in and that is how it is. Like that's how it's always been. I haven't been yelled at for being late ever, I don't think, because normally people kind of appreciate it, but I can, you know, it is one of those things that you see your call sheet and you're like, are you joking? Like I can't fly. When a multi-million-dollar company takes 3 months to pay you. This is one that resonates with me so much. And this is something like, on a serious note, this is something that really makes me angry. If you're self-employed, like you will understand the potential for like earning, depending on the client you're working for and the amount that you're working, can be really good as a model. And I'm sure most of you kind of think we're all minted. As you can see, I live with my parents. What does that tell you? Well, this is one of the reasons why. So normally how it works is that the company that has hired you, say it's like Tesco, for example. Tesco's hired me to do their spring summer campaign and I have worked that day. They then have up to 30 days to pay my agency, and then my agency will take their cut and then your agency will pay you. But I've already done the work, so I kind of feel like there should be a bit of a rejig, because I feel like a lot of these kind of big companies that are employing models and then obviously are paying these big agencies kind of forget that there is like a single person behind it with bills and stuff. I did have a situation last year where I came back to work when I hadn't been working for a little while, but I knew that I had money coming in that I was owed that was past the 3-month mark, so I started requesting that it be chased up, etc., and the company just wouldn't give a date for payment. I ended up receiving payment finally 6 months after I had done that job, but it was at a time where, because I'd been poorly and I hadn't had work in, it started to become an issue that I had to like borrow money off my parents and stuff, and it just got to a point where it's like, I've done this work for you already and it's really not fair. So I kind of do feel like maybe things need to change a little bit. We have maybe like a, you receive 25% upfront or something, because when that day is finished, I've done the job for you and then I have to wait like 3 months. It is a little bit unfair, and you are kind of thinking, well, if you're Tesco or you're I don't know, some massive, like Babyliss, like some massive hair company or something, then you are kind of like, well, you have loads of employees, you're obviously paying your employees that work in the office buildings and stuff their monthly salary, so why can't you just pay the models when the job's done? I feel like that kind of period should be reduced to like 30 days or something as an absolute maximum, because especially if you are doing like uni at the same time or something. I'm really lucky, like I live at home, and my parents have been able to sort of help me out when I was poorly. But if you have a gap in your earnings, or you're trying to do university and stuff at the same time, where you're living kind of on like student finance and stuff, it can be really, really tricky. Multi-million-dollar company takes 3 months to pay you. Sad but true. When the hairstylist is pulling chunks of your hair out and you're trying not to scream because you need the client. There's always going to be a hairstylist or a makeup artist that you don't necessarily like even get along with on like a personal level, or like find them difficult to work with, but that are just like a little bit heavy-handed. Now, you can have the best makeup artist or the best hairstylist in the world, and someone can accidentally pull your hair, or, you know, accidentally get too close to one of your ears with the curling tong and like burn you a little bit, or do you know what I mean? Like, accidents do happen, and that's fine. I've been poked in the eyeball with a mascara wand, like all sorts have happened. It's just kind of like a job hazard. If you've got someone else dealing with your hair and face, like, it's bound to happen at some stage, and most of the time it is totally an accident and no one meant to do it anyway. But you do get those kind of hairstylists. I find it's more hairstylists than makeup artists that I've had bad experiences with, that they kind of forget that your hair is like attached to your head. Like, the good ones always kind of say like, if anything gets too hot or whatever, like, let me know, but then they kind of yank your hair back and you're like but you're sitting there like, you can't look whingy, you don't want to have a bad attitude, like, do you know what I mean? It's like a fine line between like, this is not good what you're doing, remember, like, I'm a human, but also not making too much of a fuss, because if you're saying that every 5 minutes and they just keep doing it, and that's just, obviously they're incapable, like, that's just how they do hair, like, they're a bit heavy-handed, then you start looking really whiny, and then that can cause a problem, and like potentially the client will think you're difficult to work with, and it's just a whole thing. So normally we just sit there like half an hour and it's over. Do you know what I mean? When you've been changing fast all day, shooting e-com, and then as you remove your last ugly dress, they bring over another rack. Oh my god, this has happened so many times to me. So normally when you're shooting e-com, that stands for e-commerce. So when you go and look at kind of e-commerce pictures, that is like if you're internet shopping and you're on ASOS, you're online shopping. Do you mind? When you're online shopping, those e-commerce pictures are what are kind of like our bread and butter money. And what happens on set when you're shooting those internet product shots is that you tend to have like anywhere between like 25 and like 35. Depends who you're shooting for and whether they need a video as well. But normally when you finish your rack, they expect you to like finish that, and that will take you like however long you're booked for, and that's fair enough. But sometimes if you're really speedy, and this happens to me an awful lot because I'm quite quick to shoot, it is like soul destroying when you've kind of blasted through and you think you might get away like half an hour early, which for me is the difference between hitting rush hour on my way back to my house, which is like, I think it's anywhere between like an hour and a half and 2 hours door to door to get into London, like depending on where I am in London from mine. As you guys know, I live in Hampshire, so I commute in. So that's the difference between like me hitting the disgusting bit of rush hour and me getting on a train before the massive rush and still getting a seat. Ugh, and it drives me mad when you have like busted your ass all day and you're like, I've done like 35 shots, and they bring another 10 out because they know you've been quick all day, you've finished early, and they can get another 10 out of you. You're like, I'm gonna die. When the makeup artist gives you posing advice, this is really funny because it doesn't happen very often, I find, but when it does, boy does it grind my gears. This is the thing. Like, this is one of those things where I feel like unless you're really struggling, or, you know, you're asking for some directional stuff, which normally would be coming from the photographer or the art director or the client, because they will be looking at the screen and making sure you're kind of doing it okay. there's a massive difference between like a makeup artist or a hairstylist or someone that kind of doesn't have the like right to give you advice, just kind of giving you a hint. Like if they've been over by the screen and you're stood on set, like sometimes they might come over and whisper, and you know, they really love it when you put your hand in your pocket, like give you little hints. Like that's totally different and that's really helpful, and we always really appreciate that. But I think there's a fine line between that and like someone being like, oh babe, just do this, like do this, and it's just, it feels like, especially if it's advice that, you know, like the photographer's just told you not to do something and then the makeup artist is going, do this because it looks good for their makeup or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like a really, I don't know, I've had a lot of experiences like this, and it does, for me, like I do makeup as well myself, and I had a really lovely experience when I was in Germany for this particular client a couple of weeks ago, where the makeup artist really liked to kind of collaborate, and so she would let me do my lip liner, I did my own mascara, she saw pictures where I'd done my brows before, so she let me do my eyebrows, just because you know your face shape really well, and if you're someone that wears makeup, enjoys makeup, or does makeup yourself, then you'll be good at it. If you're a kind of a newbie or you don't wear much, then obviously you wouldn't feel comfortable and you can say no. So that was a really nice experience, but generally speaking, like I'm not gonna step on your toes because this is your job and I respect that that's your job. So I would appreciate it if you don't step on mine, because this is my job. You know, it's really tricky. Or like you get that with photographers sometimes as well, that just don't like you to move at all. Like they put you in one position, they don't let you move, and then they wonder why it's not working, and you're like, just let me do my job. You take the pictures and you do all the lighting and you do all the complicated fancy stuff, and I'm the one who moves around because I know what angles look good. But there you go. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I thought I'd do something like a little bit more interesting maybe. I really do like my job. I get to travel. There are many amazing things about it, but there are also some things that like aren't right or really do get irritating, and it's just one of those things that I thought this would be kind of like a little bit of an interesting insight for you guys to get to know kind of what I do and like some of the funnier or like more annoying things that can happen on set when you do my kind of job. I know it's not very common, and I know a lot of you guys maybe are curious about it. And so I thought it would be like a funny but like interesting one. If you would like to see a part 2, then please do give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for me to become part of the Janes family. Definitely leave me a comment down below and let me know if you'd like a part 2, or if you have any other kind of questions or videos on my job that you would like me to do. I do, as I said before, have a reptile channel. I'll link it up to there. It's called Hanzilla, because you know, Godzilla, Hanzilla. I'm just as cool, and like, you know, Godzilla, reptiles, dinosaur. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye!